If you're just logging in, welcome to PIA's Technology and Innovation Seminar. We're going to get started in just a minute. We're going to give everybody a chance to get in. We have a great panel here today, and we'll get them introduced, and I think we're going to have a very lively discussion. All right. I will say just a couple housekeeping things. It's wonderful if you keep yourselves muted so that we don't get any background noise. But you are welcome to turn on your cameras. And I just saw when I clicked through, a couple of you had done that. We love not just talking to the other panelists, talking to actual faces. So if you're in a place and you feel comfortable doing that, by all means, turn on your camera. Another thing is we want it to be an interactive discussion as much as you're able to do. So if you hear something and you want to comment, throw it into the chat. We're monitoring the chat the whole time, so we'll bring that into the discussion. If you have a question, we'll loop in your question. We definitely want to hear from the audience and do those questions. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started? So we don't lose another minute of time for this fabulous discussion about adapting to the DIY client. I am Claire DiNicola. I'm a consultant with PIA, and if you've come to any of these other panels, you may have heard me before. I love talking to folks in the insurance industry about issues that are important to insurance agents. The folks today are a blend. We have two agents and two technology vendors on our panel, and we're going to be discussing adapting to the DIY client. That is the do-it-yourself client, if you didn't know that. And we're going to touch on all kinds of areas, from technology to culture to how it benefits your agencies. As I said, we have a great panel. So I'm going to start with introducing our panel. First, we have Joel Dunham with Ovation Insurance. And I'll just say Joel is a new member of PIA's Ascending Leaders Council. So I'm going to ask Joel to just say a few words about who he is and his agency. Joel?
I'm the president of Ovation Insurance. We're from Fort Wayne, Indiana. We've been with PIA for I think going on 15 years now. I served as Indiana president a couple of years ago, and happy to be here.
Thank you, Joel. Now we have all the way from the West Coast, we have Patrick Espilen from Dyad. Patrick, oh, and Dyad is also a member of PIA's National Technology Council. So Patrick?
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Appreciate that. And again, thank you for the webinar and what you guys do at the PIA. Dyad is an insurance technology vendor, specifically in the agency management system space. We are the makers of the agency management system called Nexure. And I have been with the company since its inception back in the early 2000s, a little over 20 years now when we put out version 1 back in those days. My official title is VP of Product. So I'm one of those dudes that gets to tell those developers what to build, which is always fun and exciting, and definitely like working with you agents on getting those new ideas, stealing your good ideas and getting them into the product.
That's great. Thank you, Patrick. And you and I have been on panels before too. Next, we have Aaron Levine, who is a leader, been a leader for a while, right? In PIA New Jersey, soon to be the big leader of LG Insurance. Aaron, would you tell us a little bit about you?
Awesome, Claire. Thank you so much. So happy to be able to sit on this panel with these great panelists. It's going to be really a wonderful conversation because it's a confusing conversation. But LG Insurance Agency, we're based in New Jersey, and I am president-elect. So June of 2026 this year, I will become president of PIA of New Jersey. I'm also the lead on our conference, which is going to be again in June of 2026 at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City. Always looking for new technology vendors to join us, and we have some new and exciting things as we continue these great AI and technology conversations. So again, Claire, thanks again for inviting me to sit here today.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have the newest member of our PIA Technology Council. We have Vabe Saxena with Infer, Vabe, also from the West Coast right now. Vabe, will you tell us a little bit about you and your company?
Sure. Thanks so much, Claire. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I am the CEO and co-founder of Infer. Infer is building AI virtual assistants where you can talk to the AI that automates a lot of your inbound and outbound repetitive calls. This includes automating quote intake, policy servicing, and even payments. We have been used by large agencies, including one of Fortune 100 independent agencies and even smaller agencies. And I'm lucky to be here.
Excellent. So when we were putting this panel together, we thought about this topic and we thought it was really good to have this blend of agency perspective, technology solutions provider perspective, because you all come at it from a different way. You all may have different things you're aware of, and we want you to bring that to the table today. So I'm going to stop sharing this slide. We're going to go to our screen. I'm going to remind everybody to put stuff in the chat because we're watching it. Our panelists may jump in and answer questions, or if you're attending and you want to add another comment or answer a question, please do so. But I'm going to ask all of our panelists to start this question. When we talk about DIY, the DIY client in insurance today, what are we really describing in your view? And then I want you to kind of take it from the idea of, self-service has been talked about for a long time. But do you think today, with what's available and how agents are approaching their businesses, it's different today, or is it just more of the same? So, Aaron, maybe you could go first on this one.
Put me on the hot seat to
Yeah.
take this one out first. I mean, I had a service contractor in my house yesterday working on my speaker system in the house because I had some speakers that were going out. And he's like, "Oh, you did a pretty good job of DIY on this." I'm like, "I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Thank God for YouTube to be able to help me." Right. So it's kind of scary. I rely on professionals to help me with a lot of different things in my life. And being a DIY client can be good for certain processes and tasks, but other times it can be challenging in the commercial insurance space or in the residential space. Most of the time when we see somebody do their own quotes, they're undervalued, underinsured, understated, and then they get into trouble. So it gets to be a little bit scary when it comes to a full system of DIY. Now, log in and pay your bills, have push notifications on an app, be able to talk to a bot, right, at Infer to be able to help with certain tasks for mortgagee changes. So there's a lot of opportunities to continue that self-service model, but I don't want to put myself out of business by just having robotic processes be able to do everything in the agency, because we need to put our personal touch on it. So again, DIY can go so many different ways, right? And at the same time, can insurance companies reduce expense by allowing certain things to be DIY, like inspections, which I've been able to help commercial clients out with by going on site, adding my personal touch, helping out with inspections, pre-inspection. So there's so many different things that we can put in this process automation that, we want to make sure we continue to maintain that personal touch. And I see a lot of great agents on this call as I'm looking through some of the names on here that I think some people were going to feel the same way about that.
Mm-hmm. And what I think I hear you saying is, as agents, you need to be very intentional about how you approach this. There's a lot of opportunity, but be really looking at where you do add the value and where maybe you can get some help along the way, or allow customers to do what they want to do, like you wanted to do the wire.
Yeah. And we have opportunities that we offer for quote bind issue things on our website. I love passive income. Who doesn't love passive income? But when it comes to the main income of the agency, I think having the agent still touch it, right? The human in the loop piece of it, very, very, very important.
Aaron, just one quick question. When you were doing the wiring and then you called in the pro, were you trying to do it without him and then you had to call for help? Or
I tried to fix it by myself because I didn't know who to call for help, right? I didn't have that quote unquote, that who in my life, relating to the podcast that I run, the Who You Work With Matters podcast. And, it's all about having the right who's in our agencies, as our vendors, in our industry partners, and everything else in between.
Yeah, good. Very good. Patrick, would you weigh in on this? And I'm also curious if you have, given everything you're exposed to, a thought on, do you think this time, this place we're in is any different than what's happened in the past? Or is it more of an evolution of the same?
Yeah, great question. I think what Aaron said, he said two things that were really important. Now, in his particular situation, he made a choice. Aaron, I wouldn't have chosen electrical as the first thing that I would have gone at because for sure that would have gone poorly in my home. But you wanted a choice. Your choice is different from Claire's. It's different from, Joel's and others. And that's what the DIY client is really about. They want choices. Some are going to have different comfort levels. They're going to decide to take on quite a lot in the insurance experience. Or some are going to be, no, I really want to just do a little, but I want to have that trusted advisor readily available to me so that I can jump right to that and call Aaron if I need to and get him on the phone easily. And to your question, I don't think it is definitely evolved and more rapidly, I think, probably in the last 2 years.
Mhm.
I think mostly because we're all feeling the pressures of all these new communication pathways, like an AI chatbot or something of that nature. I think that many of us, at least in the vendor space, we've offered solutions for this for a long time. I think about for Dyad, we've had an insured portal for over 15 years with capabilities to do things like get certificates and things of that nature. It just took a long time for agencies to get comfortable with kind of letting go of that experience. And that was what Aaron was referring to, was that there's also a trust fall that he has to make to be able to make sure that he can kind of give up some of that to
Mhm.
that DIY client and not give away his value proposition in the process.
Mm. And you're touching on something we are going to touch on because I think there's and the agents have clients, some clients don't want to help themselves, right? And so they may not be the ones to want to use a portal or something like that. So that's another aspect.
I
So
had a carrier meeting the other day, and they're like, "Great news! We're coming out with this new consumer portal." I'm like, "Your clients want to text me and call me, or have their people text me and call me for certain things, especially in the high net worth space, right?" So I'm like, I wasn't excited about their new technology, their new tech venture for what they were putting out as far as a consumer portal. But I like what Patrick's saying, that the portals have been out there. We have them. There's just a new emphasis on it based on our conversations today. And this DIY conversation is, is it consumer focused purchase, right? Which has been communicated to us by 800 numbers on television for many, many years. Log into the app, buy your auto insurance online and have no coverage, but it's going to be cheap.
Mhm.
So that's all been there. The new stuff is really using the automations that come to us as agents. And again, at what Patrick talked about with having that consumer portal, we have to, as agents, trust the data that we put in there, that our
Ah,
customers are going to get out correctly. So
okay.
I don't want to go off on that tangent,
No,
but
because we have a bunch of tangents. And from our pre-calls, folks, we did talk about the accuracy and the trust in the data. So we are going to talk about that. That's very important. But let's get to the overarching thing from Vape, because you're in a totally kind of a newer space. You're talking about AI to folks. How are you looking at this DIY space, Vape?
I have seen some things which are being very surprising for me. So there's an MGA that we work with. They're based out of Salt Lake City. Um, they have both the insureds calling them as well as the agents calling them on behalf of the insureds or policyholders. Even though they have what both Aaron and Patrick mentioned, self-service portal, they can get the certificates from there and everything. Agents and policyholders both like calling. It's just probably much more convenient. I sat there for 3 days looking at their customer service teams. I repeatedly saw this very trivial set of things because my job was to see what was repetitive and can AI come in over there. So again, I think we have all the building blocks over there. Maybe the question only which comes to me and how I look at it personally is what is missing? Is it the trust factor? Is it that the policyholders and the agents do not trust the self service? Again, these are questions for me and in my head that are the systems not being trusted enough?
Hmm.
Today AI is just hot, the buzzword of the town. Tomorrow there would be something else. I'm 100% sure. Um, but can the trust be built through AI is the most important part, or would agents or policyholders or insurers feel like still calling and asking a human because they feel that there is much more trust over there. Um, so I might not have answered the question, but there's something which I'm seeing specifically. And this is again, I spend a lot of time at our customers' office, bigger agencies, MGAs. And this is not just one customer. This is something which I see again and again. People just love picking up their phones and wanting to talk to a human because sometimes they just want to go off the rails
Hmm.
and they might be just looking at something which is just changing their information,
Yeah.
changing their addresses. Um, I wonder why. I'm
You
gonna just
used
leave it
you
at
used the
there.
good word. You used the word trust, right? So,
Yeah.
it's, do we as agents trust our data, right? Do we need to go search for it further because it's not accurate in the systems? Do we trust um, the AI voice bot to do the right thing, right? Or is
Yeah.
the bot going to go off the rails? And then there's that comfort level that we all get stuck in as human beings. We get stuck in doing what we know and not understanding what can be new that can, again, take 7 steps out of a process, right? Elon Musk, how do we strip out 30% of the steps in a process to streamline it and simplify it? So really good points.
Yeah, and how much trust can be built, or and you touched on this is with education. But let's go to Joel. Joel, tell us about how you're looking at this from your agency because you had some different perspectives that you talked to us about.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of just got there perfectly in that, the question is, are we making things easier for our clients or are we making them more difficult? And it's the same with the carrier agent relationship. Are things being made easier or are we adding steps? And I think we're seeing a little bit of both right now. It's kind of hard to gauge. I think we're all kind of feeling out where we are with newer technologies and AI, like Vabe just said, that's the latest buzzword. Everybody's getting into AI. Carriers are saying it too. Well, okay, what do you mean by that? What are you actually getting into when you say you're getting into AI? So, I think the most important part here is the barriers that are being removed, or in some cases being put in place to change the dynamic of what this actually is. When you look at Amazon, for instance, that's about as DIY as it comes. That's a great user experience, and that's what we want to make sure that we're giving our clients. Or for carriers or vendors even, are you giving that experience to your agents? There's a lot of things that are still being duct taped together right now as an agency owner. I think Aaron would agree with this too. We're having to make choices almost every month now on what's happening with the latest technology and how it integrates with everything else, and it's a challenge.
That's a
But
whole nother webinar, I think.
right,
Integration
yeah.
and how to choose the right technology for you, right? It's
Yeah.
shiny object syndrome.
But to kind of go along with, our clients today more informed, I would say yes and no. We are starting to see some clients come to us that have gone to AI for answers, and there's a level of caution that we have to make sure that they're aware of. Just on a whim, I had to renew my license this year. And so I took the ethics course, the 3-hour course online, got it done, and then I had a thought, why don't I plug these questions in to ChatGPT and just see how it does. It's the ethics. I mean, it's easy, right? It gave me a 72% if it would have scored that test. A 72%. So if that's the scores we're getting on that basic of a test, what is it telling our clients? When they come to it with questions on coverage and we have nuanced coverage forms, that's a whole nother subject. But, I guess it all goes back to trust and the barriers that we have in place right now is, I guess, what I would say.
So Joel, that's so interesting that you did that, but also you said some clients are coming to you thinking they're more informed, and they may or not be. They may be scoring a 72, right? How are you addressing that? And I'm assuming that's just a small subset of your clients. Like, how do you address that when they're thinking they're more informed? Do you coaching them the other way or what?
Yeah, I mean I wouldn't say it's happening every day.
Mhm.
It's just a few instances, but mostly it's just what we always do. You review the policy forms with them, you show them how it actually works, be as detailed as you need to be, but yeah, I mean that's again why we're here. That's why we have the trust that we do.
Yep. Yep, that's great. All right, so let's talk some real stuff. Like, so we've talked sort of in general, but now let's really talk about some of the things that clients can be doing. Like, what kinds of self-service capabilities do you think insurance value? Because you've all kind of talked about the idea that it's got to be outside looking in. We're here to serve the customers, and they may not all want to do this, and it's got to be easy for them. Like, question, Joel, maybe we could start with you is you talked about it's got to be an easy experience, like that Amazon like experience for the clients. How do you know whether it is or isn't if you're duct taping something together? Do you know because it's in your gut or, do you get feedback? How does that work? How do you know?
As best we can, we get feedback. I mean, we'll do surveys, we'll call and check in during claims, and there's some aspects that people really like. I mean, if we can speed up a claims process by having them submit photos and documentation, well, that's great. That's fantastic.
Mhm.
But there have been other things that we've used, like we've tried out different technologies that we provided for our clients. I have shiny object syndrome sometimes. I like to try new things out, and some things work better than others. They are very quick to tell us when they don't like those things, and so it's up to us to listen to that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I guess that also kind of taps into another thing that maybe the rest of you are seeing, but that's sentiment. The last 5 years have been really tough on everybody, and so I feel like email responses and so on have kind of decreased, and we've seen more activity with calls and texts because people just, I don't know. It's we're still trying to figure out how this all works with, in the new environment, but we've seen a lot more people want to talk on the phone. Um, and yeah, I mean that's a nice trend. I used to do a lot of quote videos where I would present the quotes and they would watch the video. I could see when they watched it a few times it would go really well and then we'd close the deal. I had like an 80% close ratio on those. That's gone way down. And I think it's just because people want to talk.
Huh. That's very interesting. And that's kind of what Vape was saying too, about they wanted to talk and get the call. Aaron, what do you think? What kinds of things, applications work? What do your customers want to do? And I'm going to add another part to it. If some want to do something, like let's say you're offering this, it could be a portal or something, but others don't, as an agent, you got to serve everybody in whatever way they want to be served. How do you look at that?
Serve everybody in whatever way they want to be served
Okay.
is death of me. We should be training the client to be served the way we want them to be served and make sure it's in the most efficient way possible. And then I woke up from that dream. Um, it's a challenging situation that we're in with the DIYs, right? On the commercial side, having self-service portals for certificates of insurance is a must, right? I think super important. Speed to COI is totally necessary. Not everybody uses it, but I think speed to COI is phenomenal. We also have virtual assistant help on COIs when the portals aren't working fully to their capabilities if we need special language depending on what the COI is. But the biggest issue we're having on the COI side commercially is all the robots on the landlord or the lender side reviewing our COIs and kicking them back for errors and mistakes that don't actually exist, asking for coverage that is not normal or reasonable for certain things. So we have more trouble with the DIY on the bots on the customer side or the landlord, the requester side for COIs. But that's a whole nother thing, right? Where the bot is getting in the way of the conversation.
Yeah.
Joel said it's important to be able to have that conversation, and I couldn't agree more. If anybody follows my LinkedIn, I put a post up about connecting in person more than once in 2026 about how important it is to maintain those personal relationships, to be able to grow them, use the technology to help us streamline things so that we can spend more time connecting and being, right? So definitely COIs super important on the DIY side. Simple tasks like bill pay, mortgagee changes, right? If we could DIY all of that stuff, I think it would be great. I think we do some of it, but not all of it. And just what Vabe was saying about those simple tasks where somebody can call in, speak to a really well-sounding bot, right? Who's not having conversations with Copilot or Gemini or GPT, whatever, whoever they're using, and getting things done conversationally. I had a blog post written the other day while I was driving because I was able to just chat with Gemini and say, here's a blog post I need to write. And then I just talked for 2 minutes into the system and it spit out something better than I would have been able to write by myself just by being able to have a conversation with it. So, sometimes it's disappointing to be able to do that, but it's also really cool at the same time.
I agree. It changes the whole way. In fact, this next panel will just be bots. We won't actually be people.
We can create our own GPTs
right
and have them talk to each other.
You didn't know that's what you were attending today, right? Should we go into the data aspects? And I want to do this without, we're not going to name any names of carriers or vendors or any specifically, but we kind of touched on this, right? Like everything rides on good data, whether if your customer is using something, if it spits out the wrong data, it's not useful, right? And they probably will never go back to it again. So how are we thinking about that data? And this is an age-old, I've been in the industry for probably, I don't know, 25 years or so. It's been an age-old question forever. Good data, because you have to exchange with so many folks, right? To the vendor, to the carrier, to the agent, and back and forth. So how should we look at that? I don't know. Patrick, do you have a point of view on that?
Wow, that's a deep topic, and
It's a
definitely
topic.
at the technology
But you were looking right. You were at first in my screen, so I said,
I was ready. My bot was ready. My bot was ready for you to
yeah,
this.
yeah.
No, yes, this is probably the biggest change in our industry right now, and we talk about it at the technology vendor level a lot. And we talk about something as simple as download. We've had download for years. We've all been using this for over 20 years, right? And to get the carriers to standardize was the big fight. That was the whole reason why we put Accord in place, was to try to get a standardization of data interchange back and forth that we could all agree upon. And now I do, and take this for a little bit of personal opinion, but I do believe there's a fundamental shift that's happening here. One, in the types of data that we're being asked to submit and present. And I think that a lot of that's being driven by AI on the carrier side, because they're now exploring and finding unique data points and connectivity. So they start to ask these poor agents on the call for additional kinds of data. And then also the movement of a lot of risks out of the admitted space and into the non-admitted space. And when we start doing that, we're ending up with a lot of disparate data points that are very different than what traditional carriers are asking for. And so as vendors, what we're doing to try to hit on this is to make our data layers much more flexible and configurable, to where the agencies can have that choice in how they want that data to come in, how they want to then present it on the external technical touch points. That, to me, I think the data is the key.
Yeah.
It's the key to the trust, but I think it's imperative on us as vendors to give the Aarons and the Joels of the world the choice. They need to be able to make the choice as to what they're going to present.
Yeah. And you raised so many issues in that, and we're going to turn to Joel in a minute, because even when you talk about, if people spent many years on the traditional insurance, personal lines, and certain aspects of commercial lines, and that's it. And there's a lot more happening out there, that the data, either there are standards and people aren't using them, or there are no standards. And so it can get very ugly fast. The technology isn't the problem. Often the data can be the problem, right? The technology can do stuff now.
I mean, we have technology here at Dyad that we're working on to dedupe questions in
Mhm.
rating interfaces to
Mhm.
make sure that a question that's asked 7 different ways, but the same way, the same question from 7 different carriers to make it easier on our clients.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the game. That's where we're
Yeah.
at right now.
Yeah. So, Joel, tell us from your experience why this is a big issue and how important it is to your serving your customers.
I think a part of that is connectivity. I mean, like I said earlier, we're still having to duct tape an awful lot of things together. There probably exists some very simple solutions to that. But right now, we still are putting a lot of pieces together, and we don't know right now if those pieces are going to be the same ones today that they will be in 3 months, because it's sort of the Wild West, at least in terms of AI and InsurTech. So there's a lot to think about there, but if the data is bad or incomplete or isn't quite what you need it to be, then it doesn't quite work for us. And if we're going to pass that along to clients, it doesn't quite work for them either. When we were talking the other day, I know Aaron had some really good thoughts on that, and he can probably articulate this a little bit better than what I'm trying to say. So I think,
You're
Aaron,
sticking
why don't you clean
out.
this up for me?
You're doing great.
I think we're, turning this conversation into the shiny object
Uh-huh.
conversation, Joel, right? I think that's kind of where you were going. We're duct taping it together because, you said Wild Wild West. I'm calling it the modern day gold rush. How can we get the insurance agents dollars out of their pockets to quote unquote make it faster, better, cheaper, although we're spending so much more money and then needing to figure out how to integrate it. Integration is the key, but good data is the most important, right? That's the building block. We got to make sure we have good data first, build the process second, and then add the tool for it third. um, I think that's the best way, in my opinion, to look at it, because I've bought plenty of things, right? Plenty of technologies in the last 3 years, some of which I still use. Some have gone by the wayside and I canceled them way too late. Too many dollars went out of my pocket on things that I couldn't integrate that didn't make sense, right? A lot of trial and error has gone into it, but I've been attuned to it. Hence why I'm sitting here on this call with the 4 of you right now, because I see it and I live it, especially on the PIA side with respect to running conference, running panels, working with the tech council on for PIA National and seeing what everybody's doing. It comes down to having good data and figuring out what process you want to solve, and then we can find a way to solve it. Like, I am scared to death of the AI agent answering my phone. Just
Ah,
personally scared. Vabe, you have a challenge in front of you to unscare me, I guess, to get me to buy your tool. Like, I have the website up, it says tap to talk. I almost want to start talking to your robot right now while we're on this call, but
after the
I'll
call,
wait till
don't
we're
do
done.
that right now.
But but I'm scared to death of that. But my team would probably love it because the phone's ringing, 112 times per day, and how many of those calls can we shift out? Again, that goes to the integration piece of this conversation. Can we set it up correctly? Can we integrate it appropriately and get the team to buy in on it is the most important, because if we don't buy in, we're still picking up the phone, right? This goes back to service centers for our carriers. Is your agency a service center based agency where you trust the transfer, the automatic transfer or the warm transfer over to the service center for, you know, personal auto or small business, right? Whatever it is, and transferring that out for a very small VIG to then be able to focus here, right? So how can we keep that in, save that money from going to the insurance carrier, and be able to redeploy it through an automation or a bot that's going to be able to have access to our data to be able to pull those things. So there's so many questions around this. I think it's sit back, take a breath, and put the pieces together before deploying it and hoping that it works. Because the hope and pray system around this could hurt us a lot more than stepping back, taking the extra 2 minutes, and deploying it correctly.
So let's go down that AI path. And Vabe, I want to go to you. I just want to give a quick, for anybody in the audience who wants to, I'm going to remind you, put in your questions into the chat or comments because we would be glad to bring them into the party here. But let's talk about that. So the AI voice. So you are, I don't think Aaron is alone, right, Vabe, in terms of you got to get past the agent has to know that it's going to work. It's not going to displace the agent. It's going to be good for his business and it's going to do it accurately. And Vabe, you addressed this up front of building trust. You know how important it is to build trust. So talk to us about the issues there. What do you see and maybe the ways that you can see building trust with AI?
Yeah, I think just one point from the last conversation, which Aaron was saying. One thing which I tell a lot of the agency owners is that AI eats data for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's what AI does. If the chances of AI within insurance world for carriers, for agency owners working well is solely dependent on the data. And here's the chicken and egg problem that we have faced. We will go to an agency, they're really interested in implementing the AI solutions at different places. We always have this quick sort of scoping call where we ask them, off the top of your head, where do you think repetitions happen in your calls, right? We will, that's a low hanging fruit we would tap into. But then comes the conversation about integrations and they are scared. And I totally get that because people have seen these examples of internet somewhere that AI can manipulate your data, even if AI is just reading it. But AI cannot perform really good if you are not integrating with the systems. This could be your telephony systems, this is AMS systems, this is your CRMs. Like one of our use cases is the quote intake. There's overflow of calls happening during the day or after hours. The AI agent or the voice AI acts like a barrier. We clearly set some metrics aside that only if our AI crosses this KPI, right, it's successful for you and you adapt it. Otherwise, we are happy to just leave. I think that is one of the ways in which you try to build trust. And another part is constant monitoring is something that we do. We really care about the sentiment, what is happening during the call. There are cases where we have seen people not liking talking to the AI. The question that comes to us is, what do we do then? By the way, we have this ongoing conversation always. Should we tell whether it's an AI or not? And we always are on the side of it's much more better to disclose that so that you win the trust. Because what we have seen, and this is like millions and millions of calls, trust is built when you set the expectations clearly, what can be done and cannot be done.
Mhm.
That is what separates what I like to call it bad AI versus good AI. Someone which is trying to be pretentious and saying that they can do everything while they're not able to. Just on the final piece, even on the KPI side, we have helped agencies come up with certain KPIs. Something like how many calls, let's just say you're getting 1,000 calls in a day. How many calls are actually being received by the licensed agents and they are warm transferred, such that they are able to have a proper full-length conversation about quote, about their needs, about the coverages. That's one of the key criterias. AI serves really well as a screening tool. People who are shopping around versus people who are really serious. That's one of the core insights that we have received. And agencies really, really benefit from that one. And you can use, and you should be using different types of AI to figure it out. It takes a little while, which is working out well for you. But have those KPIs or metrics in mind that what would success look like for them personally? And this is a question again, a question we ask them. How does success look like for them 3 months down the line once the solution is implemented? I think that's a picture which is more important. Otherwise, it's really hard which AI tool is successful or not. Something which Aaron was mentioning. I love trying out personally different set of tools, But there are some tools which take more of my money, and there are some tools where I cancel my subscriptions. So you have to, as an AI tool, build the trust, and that trust is only built when you know 3 months down the line what would success look like for me. That's for the agency owners to decide.
So, Babe, this is interesting because, and I think this is a particularly sensitive technology. I don't know, the agents may weigh in because it's so customer facing, meaning you can't afford to make a mistake and have the customer experience be bad, or maybe there are ways to test that. But I think what I hear you saying, and you tell me if this is right, that the AI can do more than solve an immediate problem, like I need after hours support, so the AI will answer the phone. But the AI can provide maybe a richer set of information back to the agency owner that he can think about the types of calls he's receiving and what that, I mean, I know some agents are getting transcripts and all of that from their people who answer, but
Mhm.
this may be even more informed, or am I not understanding that correctly?
Yes, AI is more informed. It presents much better and richer experiences. Like, for example, it can integrate with your AMS system
Mhm.
and take the payments right away. It's pretty good at taking payments. You just need to have PCI compliance in place, and it can straight up take payments. It can change the payment plans, confirm it, because what we like to think is how simple this task is. Any task which has less than 4 or 5 steps is good enough for AI to do. And AI is pretty flexible in the conversational steps, right?
Mhm.
Where it can ask about how is your day going? What are you calling us about? And then come back to the main topic. And what the place where we have spent a lot of time working with agency owners is designing the AI system. There's a certain brand, there's a certain character that you can give your AI to, and that's really critical because each agency, I like to believe, has their own unique identity, and they want to give their AI a unique taste. And we like to spend a lot of time on taste because I personally still believe there's more art to the AI world than science behind it.
Mhm.
So yes, and this leads up to what you are saying, Claire, a much more richer experience once you have systems which are integrated like AMS systems, your telephony systems, your CRMs, and even like right now, we just went live with the quoting system. So it can provide you the quotes right away or the phone call.
That's great. Aaron, Joel, where do you guys weigh in on the thing that Vabe raised about, do you tell the caller it's AI up front? Do you have a point of view?
Definitely tell them. We've tried a couple of options in terms of having AI facing our clients. The more, like exactly like he said, the more transparent you are, the better the experience is going to go. You're still, right now, especially, you're still going to have to maybe keep one hand, maybe two on the steering wheel to make sure that it's headed in the right direction. It's still learning too. Think about how much things have improved just in the last year. But yeah, full
Yeah,
transparency.
yeah. Aaron,
I've
you,
already announced that I'm scared to death of it. So,
that's,
I would probably hide it
you
and
would
see how long I
hide.
could get away with it.
I'll tell you, years ago, this was had to be at least a year ago. I called Chewy with a complaint about something, and I was about 10 minutes into a call before I realized I'm not talking to a person. And it was a very nice bot, but I felt kind of foolish. Like I should have known that. I would have liked to have known up front. I'll say that. Somebody did just put in the chat, which I think is interesting. A fun idea that's popular for tech companies and gets agent employee buy-in are hackathon competitions for AI workflow ideas. Any ideas you actually try are their own and they've already bought in. I think that's kind of interesting. Get agents perhaps using, because both Aaron and Joel have kind of said they try it first anyway, getting them using things before get pushed out. And Patrick, you liked that idea. Do you want to add to your comments there?
No, it is one that we do in the tech space a lot. We do it here at Dyad as well. To try to get developers thinking kind of outside their normal day to day,
Mhm.
to try to get them to be creative. And yes, there's definitely a buy-in aspect to it when it's an account manager's idea in
Yep.
an agency. then it's going to get legs, right? We're going to start doing something with it, or it goes beyond just being, well, the agency owner wants to put this in place because it's going to save costs, right? I was hearing some of these guys talk about the AI. The minute there was that announcement, or at least somewhere in the news, that the AI agents can pass the insurance exam,
Uh,
I would assure you that was probably the highest traffic day of people checking their 401ks in agencies, right? Is, oh my gosh, this is coming. I'm going to have no job in the future. And I heard the coolest quote the other day of AI is not going to replace your job. People that know how to use AI to complement their job are going to be the people that take your job. Okay. So embracing these AI technologies and finding ways to integrate them in your day to day to where it makes sense as a value proposition for the organization. And there's, 100 people on this call, it's going to be 100 different value propositions at this point. That once you decide that, that's going to be your comfort level for the AI. And then that'll dictate how you implement it.
So there's two things to that. One to Dan's question. Hi, Dan, how are you? We've been on the agent side of vendors trying to deploy and develop new ideas, right? Where they bring in groups of agents for product testing and manipulation, right? Quote, not, I don't know about a hackathon where it's a 48-hour event, but, being able to test and see and do from our perspective and give that direct feedback to the development team and the product team is enjoyable when we have the time to do it. Because we also don't always have the time to be product testers and not be compensated for it. So I think that's, a true value add when the vendor has the ability to bring agents in to see what it is, and not just the marketing reps, right? Not just the marketing reps getting the feedback from us on the agent side. The true product conversations are very valuable on that side for sure.
And I think perhaps it's worth your time more when the vendor has the ability to take your feedback and do something with it, right? As opposed just that there, you can actually influence what is delivered ultimately, and
Absolutely.
hopefully for you. We've talked a lot on this call sort of about the don'ts, I kind of feel like beware of this or beware of the shiny object. But let's think about, as agents and for our vendors on the call, what either you're seeing, what you may be seeing in the field, but what should agents be doing now to like our customer, I think we all agree with this premise. Customers are moving more toward this. So they will kind of determine themselves depending on whether they're commercial, personal, high end, or, maybe it's on age demographics. But we're moving toward this. People want to do more things. Yet some of you have reflected on there's a higher need for some level of connectivity too. You've seen that trend. But if you're an agent and you don't want to just buy everything you've got out there, what should you be thinking of in terms of your customer base and how you look at your business strategically? What, Aaron? You're laughing. You get it first.
We talk about the don'ts because I've done it all. So it's easy to talk about what not to do because I've already done it all. I think we need to do it. As agents, we need to buy those shiny objects from time to time and learn. Trial by fire is the best way. Most people are on this call are independent agents, small to mid-sized companies. And when we hire producers, it's go sell something and good luck, right? We need to try different technologies because as we continue to become more experienced in years in our agency ownership, we need to continue to stay relevant. I think is very important too. So continuing to try is okay. Understanding when to say no and to stop is also important too. But without trying new things, you're not going to be able to, excel and, and be able to understand what won't work next time and what you're looking for. So without trying, we get nowhere. And I've implemented many technologies. I've failed many times. I've switched AMS systems and it was one of the worst experiences of my life. I'm sure other agents on this call can raise their hand to that one. I have a whole 1 year gap in my data set from a switch, and then wound up switching back and lost a year's worth of data, and it was really a learning experience. So we need to do that with all of these new technologies. Understand DIY and where it makes sense. It may not just be quote bind issue. It may not just be self-service portals or having robots be able to answer our phones. It's really what matters to the independent, to the owner, for them to understand and update their processes. So have fun doing it, I think is great advice for anybody that wants to try to modernize. Just get out there and go make some mistakes and then learn how to implement and integrate better next time.
So we know you're not going to switch your agency management system again anytime soon.
Sorry, Patrick.
But
Darn.
but are there things, Aaron, that you're thinking of that you would like to try? Are you looking?
Yeah, that's great question. I mean, the voice agent is definitely something that's been on burning in the back of my head, right? That's an interesting conversation. I think that's also sexy and exciting to talk about. More, I'm going to dig on Patrick again, more exciting than an agency management system. But the fact that, Dyad has a great consumer portal already built in, that could be the most important thing for somebody, and say, you know what? I don't need to be on another solution provider. We're not dropping names. We only get to talk about Patrick and Vabe here. And we want that consumer portal, and Dyad might be the best one for that agent. And that's a huge step. And being able to implement, integrate, and transfer is amazing, right? That's what we all want to be able to do. And that's why we live and work and breathe in this independent agency world that we live in, because we get to make these decisions. We get to see these shiny new objects. There's a great conference in Florida in 2 weeks from now that's going to have a lot of great technology going on. And then again in Atlantic City in June. And, I don't know when Indiana's conference is, Joel, but, I'm sure there's a lot of great vendors that are going to be coming out to see you and exhibit as well. And I think it's great to just continue to learn and grow. Without learning and growing, we're going to go stale and go out of business.
Yep, I think that's a very good point. So you name check Patrick. And Patrick, you kind of started out with this about portals have been around forever and haven't necessarily gotten the use. What do you think, in your point of view? You see a lot of agents in business, you see a lot of what they're doing, you know what you've built and things. What do you think folks should be doing as a do, not a don't?
Okay, it goes to any technology that you implement. Just know your business, know your customer. And I know that seems very kind of a blanket statement, but it's critical to anything that you're implementing. The know your business side, know the nature of your business. What are your pain points? What can you quantify? They've said it, right? If we've got a situation where we've got 100 phone calls a week that are in this one particular pocketed area, then great. That's a potential target point for his technology, and something that can be implemented relatively easily. I'm not putting you on the spot, Vabe, but I mean, when the project's smaller, we always think of that as being a nice entry point. But know your customer. Are they a customer type? I think Aaron said he's in that high net worth kind of space. We're likely dealing with a lot of family shops and different things where maybe that isn't the right solution for what they're doing. It needs a larger touch or a more frequent touch. So there are other technology solutions that will get in there, things like automated communications and things to let them know when he's doing things on their behalf. There's a value proposition in that. So I think that, again, that's where you start. If you're trying to consider anything, figure out what is it you're really trying to solve. What does the finish line look like? And you're going to have many, many, many finish lines. Don't try to take on too much at once, because that'll end up being a disaster all the way around. You won't. You'll be going in too many different directions. And it'll be the Spider-Man meme we see where everybody's pointing at everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And it's just not going to work.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Vabe, this had to be about 5 years ago. I think I was part of I did a survey for an industry organization called Augie. And one of the questions was, does your agency operate or answer phones 24/7? And a huge number said they do not.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking about that, like, uh-oh, that could be. Now, the agents on the phone maybe say that's not a problem. People know our hours, or maybe they've handled it in other ways. But I guess I'm thinking, when I think of what you do, I think, oh, that's to me an easy if you weren't answering the phone, or if you had to take a cell phone call from somebody, and maybe you didn't, maybe it was for a bill pay or something small. Is it is that a potential plugin for voice AI that you could just plug it into a certain problem that you have to kind of build the experience and build the trust? And I'm kind of giving you a very specific question, but please elaborate on anything you're seeing out in the agents too.
Yes, 100%. Um, I also like to think this more from a perspective of what are the activities where you can build a human connection versus activities where you think you won't be able to build human connection.
Yep.
I think helping someone find out the right coverage for them is a genuine way of building connection. I don't think so. AI is good at that. When I hear that, I think Patrick mentioned that the AI did pass the exam. I question myself that in a real world scenario, can AI truly understand my needs and
Mhm.
recommend me the right insurance? And if then something goes wrong, whom I am to blame to? Because if I'm guessing a lot of people have used ChatGPT, you tell ChatGPT, hey, that's a bad answer. Like
Mhm.
you're frustrated. What happens? Nothing much happens. Like you're just like holding that frustration within, and you probably tell your friends on the coffee table. So I think having 24-hour support, 24/7 hour support, where the AI can pick up the call, can tell your claim status, can tell, you know, about your endorsements and whatnot. They are pretty swift processes. Do they really build human connection? Is the question that you need to ask yourself. And I think that's where we come in. I think also something that we often think about, something which Aaron was mentioning. Um, I like to summarize when you're using AI tools, you are building an intuition, what's right and what's wrong. You're also building a taste. That's almost like you try out different foods to figure out which one makes you happy and which one is probably like your soul food. AI is exactly the same. And then you want to work out with vendors who give you low barrier to entry. What I mean by that is if things do not work, they give your money back because that is what gives them a little bit more of trust because it's really hard to give the time back because I would sit with them, I would have those conversations. I cannot give them their time back, but I can give, if this did not work out for them, I'm like, sure, we make that agreement, take your money back because we could not help you accomplish what you were looking for.
Skin in
And
the
I
game.
think that's another way that would make the agency owners feel, okay, I want to try something because
Mhm.
there's a lesser or a lower barrier to entry or to try it out. Um, by the way, that's also one of our secret recipes because early on, when we went to agencies and asked them, hey, do you want to try it out? Let us integrate. They were looking at other solutions as well. And one of the reasons they tried us out, we never asked them to sign an annual contract
Mm.
because I have to put myself in their shoes. I hadn't proved myself enough. And by the way, we do this even today as well, that we try to keep a very minimum barrier, um, low risk month to month, because we also have skin in the game. So
Yeah.
if it does not, so we have to make sure that keeps on working for you so that you keep us keep paying month to month. If it does not, you will leave. And we have like no questions, no annual agreements, nothing. And the agency owner that we work with said that's why I hate most of the tools because they tap us into annual contracts. Unless we buy them out, which is very hard, they're just stuck with them, stuck with bad tools. Um,
Good.
yeah.
Good point. Thank you so much. And now, Joel, you're going to bring us home and talk to us about what should agencies or how are you looking at this as, how do I do more DIY in the future? Where would you start? What would you recommend?
Well, it's 3 o'clock, so I'll keep this short. Encourage the powers that be that you're working with to continue to remove the barriers. Remove the barriers. Make it easier for all of us to integrate and do what we need to do faster and more accurately. And of course, there are going to be winners out of this whole thing. Talk to other agents, go to your PIA events, make sure that you're communicating with people that you trust, and see what's working and what's not. And yeah, I mean, like Aaron said, test some things out, see what works.
Wonderful. A nice and succinct answer, but filled with value. Thank you to all of our panelists today. This was a really good discussion. As Aaron said at the beginning, we might have to do a part 2 where we dig into the next pieces. Thank you to everybody who attended, and there will be more. For everyone who attended, you will get a recording of this, and certainly share it within your organizations. Again, thank you guys. It was a really good discussion. You all came at it from different perspectives, but I think we got a lot of good information.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Claire.
it. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Thank you,
everybody.
Claire. Thank you, everyone.